all summer long, using the Minnesota State voter file. Well, it turns out, like every other state, we put $40,000 a year into the state of Minnesota to make sure they had the best voter file possible, to make sure their technology fit in with the state technology of every other state, and that they knew how to use it properly. And we did it all for free, so these two women could pay a nominal fee to the Minnesota Party to use their voter file on one condition, that every night when those folks went back to put into the computer all the things they'd learned by knocking on doors and who was going to vote for them and who wasn't, we would get that information in real time that night in Washington, D.C., so our presidential candidate could go to Minnesota and find those voters themselves. And when those folks run for re-election 4 years from now, they will take Barack Obama's list in Minnesota and they will have every last name on it. We are done with spending $20 million on a voter file and then letting it molder someplace so it's no good 4 years later. We are one team. We're all going to use the same voter file in this party so that we are all together building on each other's efforts. That's what you have to do. Build a long-term team that's devoted to a goal instead of having a bunch of individuals running around thinking it's about them. It's not about them. It's about a new vision for America, and that's the team that we build. Now, my favorite saying, and you as entrepreneurs will recognize this in whatever form you've heard it, but as a doctor, my version of this comes from Louis Pasteur. Chance favors the prepared mind. You can't know what's going to happen in business, in politics, in life. You can't know what's going to happen. But you can be prepared for any eventuality. So we put staff everywhere. We put staff in Utah. And we ramped up the Democratic Party in Utah, which had nothing. Why? Utah's the most conservative state in America. John Kerry got 29% in Utah during the presidential race. However, I am incredibly proud that my cousin, who's a Democratic Irish Catholic and therefore a triple minority in the state of Utah, is now the mayor of a county with 1 million voters in it, the second largest jurisdiction after the entire state itself. And how did that happen? Because when I dropped out of the presidential race, I told all my followers, this is not about just me, this is about our country. I want you all to go out and run for office. Run for local office. And so he did, dutifully, plodding along in this big county with 28% Democratic performance. That means 28% is the usual, what a Democrat usually gets in this county. And all of a sudden, lo and behold, 6 weeks before the election, the incumbent mayor gets indicted for giving all her friends free gas from the county pumps to fill up the gas. And so, of course, the Republicans get somebody else and say terrible things. But even conservatives don't like crooks in government, and they decided they wanted a real change, and my cousin's now the mayor of Salt Lake County. And he's about to get reelected because he's done a very good job. Now, what does this mean? Does this mean break things in the Dean family? No. What it means is that the next time that a Democrat runs in this really conservative state of Utah where everybody hates Democrats for a living, somebody's going to say, well, now, wait a minute. Maybe it's okay to vote for a Democrat for governor or senator or even president because the one we have that ran my county did a lot better job than the Republicans did before that. Maybe these Democrats aren't so bad. So that investing in Utah, I understand that we're not going to win the presidential election in Utah, but what we're doing is preparing the way down the road for other people to win. It can be more dramatic than this. I had a reporter for the New York Times in a not very nice tone of voice start to laugh because I went to Alaska when I was a chairman, one of the most Republican states in America. Luckily, I was able to say, it doesn't look so dumb to have gone to Alaska now that Ted Stevens is about to be indicted because our candidate for the United States Senate is 7 points ahead in that race, and I think we're going to have the first Democratic senator from the state of Alaska since Mike Gravel was senator. The prepared mind. You don't know what's going to happen, but if you're ready for any eventuality, it is a small amount of money to spend $8 million a year to make sure that every state has a chance if there becomes an opportunity to show them what the Democratic Party can really do. So that's a big part of that. That's a big part of entrepreneurship. It's a big part of changing businesses, is be open to chance. Technology. I don't think you have to, this audience needs to hear about how much technology does. But you know, politics is a funny business. In many ways, we are the business of America that is the furthest behind in technological innovation. We seem to learn things last in Washington. And so we've had these two outsider campaigns that have come in and embraced technology. Let me tell you how we embrace technology in my campaign. People give me a lot of credit for being the person who brought the internet to the forefront and all this kind of stuff. The truth is we didn't. The truth is other people did, many of them from this part of the country, but all over the country. They got together, they liked our message, which is not a message of I hate the Iraq War, it was a message of personal empowerment, that you have power in your own lives and you should take that power. The internet, I believe, is the most important invention to sustain democracy since the Gutenberg printing press 500 years ago. Because it empowers individuals. In the old days, if you want to get something done, you call up a politician, you get a bunch of people together, you put pressure on the politician, tell how important what you want is. In the new days, you go on the internet, you find an affinity group that agrees with you, and if you don't find one, you start your own, and you organize people that way and get it done. You can bypass the political process entirely if you want. You don't like what's on Fox News? Go to the internet. Watch Jon Stewart. There's lots of alternatives. The free market works, and it works really well when you're trying to get around biased, corporate-based news. It's an incredible self-empowering tool. What we did that was innovative in my campaign is not sit in Burlington thinking about all these things. We watched what you were doing as a group all over the country. And we thought, look at all this stuff. Look what it means. Let's organize this, and let's help them organize and get to know each other. The secret of the internet is not that it's an ATM machine, which is what most people in politics think. The secret of the internet is a community whose members just don't happen to all live in the same physical place. And if you treat people with respect and you ask their opinions before you start talking at them, lo and behold, you have a group of dedicated people who will work hard for a common purpose. That is what we did. We learned it from the community and then simply were able to hold up a mirror and spread it around so we could do it in the whole country. That, I think, it was the innovation in politics, is to actually start to listen to people, which is not politicians' great strength. Fast forward to where we are today. In this campaign, Senator Obama is going to be competitive, not just in Michigan and Ohio and Florida and all those places that you've read about for all these years, but I think we're going to win in Virginia. I think we're going to win in Colorado. I think we're going to win in New Mexico. I think we're going to win in Iowa. I think we have a good shot at winning in North Carolina. There are a lot of places that have not been on the map. Now, this is only 4 years. This is a pretty good evolution. In 4 years, as you know, in this business, that once you have the momentum for change, change becomes lightning fast. In fact, 4 years is a lifetime for people in this business. But 4 years is a very fast change in politics, because the previous 30 years there had been virtually no innovation in the Democratic Party whatsoever. All the innovation was on the Republican side. Now we're back in the innovation business again. I want to talk to you about the most important trend in politics that exists in America today. And it is going to be accentuated because Senator Obama happens to be our nominee. There is no community, including this one, no community in America that is exempt from what I'm about to say. There is a huge generational change going on in America. People under 30 or 35 think differently than people over 30 or 35. It is true in every community, whether it's the Pakistani American community, whether it's the tech community, whether it's the African American religious community, whether it's the evangelical community. It doesn't matter. You can pick any community you want. I want you to think about. We do a lot with faith outreach now, because there's no reason that the Republicans should have a monopoly on people of faith who want to support it. I mean, after all, when you really think about what the great teachings of the three great Abrahamic religions are, they have to do with poverty and reaching out and taking care of people who haven't been taken care of. It doesn't sound exactly like the Republican platform. So there's no reason that we shouldn't be reaching out to people of faith, because we share the core values of humanity and human rights with the three Abrahamic faiths. But we do a lot of faith outreach, and we had a religious meeting, and we have the usual Muslims, Jews, Christians of all kinds, Catholics, evangelicals, so forth, and they all sat at tables, they all had retreats, and then we brought them all together, and I came in and they summarized their findings. Every single one of the people who were leading their particular faith group began their discussion, which is, with this statement, I couldn't believe it. It was almost like it was written for me, but they all did it, and they hadn't even talked to each other before I got there. They all said, I'm not sure I can speak for the members of my congregation who are under 35, but it is really interesting what's happening in America in every community. So let me describe it for you from the political community's point of view. Because Cornell Belcher is under 35 himself, we do a lot of polling with young people. Well, it turns out that if you are under 30, you voted, your increased turnout was 20% in 2004, and you voted 56% for John Kerry. The only age group he won. If you are under 30 in 2006, your turnout went up 24% over 2002, the previous off-year election, and you voted 61% for the Democratic candidate for Congress. Now, I can't tell you what the numbers in 2007 were nationally because we don't have them because there are a lot of local elections. But I can tell you I went to Alabama a few months ago and I found out that 60% of people under 30 years old chose to vote in the Democratic primary in Alabama, not the Republican primary. This is the more interesting thing. In my generation, which is the civil rights generation, you set up certain parameters of how you're going to get out to vote based on certain assumptions about voters. The white voters vote at this level, African Americans, you've got to do some registration, Hispanic voters, so forth and so on. Asian voters, depending on whether they're immigrants or not, had a lot to do with what the percentage you voted was. You know what happens if you're under 30? It doesn't make any difference what ethnic group you belong to. Your voting turnout is the same. Black, white, brown, Asian, Caucasian, South American, your voting turnout is the same no matter what ethnic group you belong to if you're under 30, unlike my age. Why does that matter? Because young, and you see this in your community, young Americans come from a multicultural generation. It's not that race or ethnic background doesn't matter anymore. It's just they're not considered in the same way. People have friends of all different backgrounds, and they consider themselves young people